Hello. So this is going to be a bit of an experimental cast of a Dota game that me, Chris, I played. Get rid of some of the spectator controls as soon as I can. I'm joined by
Marsh Davis.
And we're going to cast a game of Dota played by my team, the Hot Dukes, here, versus some total strangers from the internet, Nesta Feed Festa. Now this is just a normal team matchmaking game between two fixed parties of 5 in captain's mode, which involves a ban pick phase. So we have randomly been placed on the dire side. They have got first ban, and they've chosen to ban Lycanthrope.
Okay.
It's very, very mega common at this stage. Lycanthrope is a very powerful hero anyway, and it's particularly powerful on the dire side because they have increased access to Roshan. I've banned Death Prophet there. I was doing the picking and banning, so I kind of know what's about to happen. Because fuck Death Prophet and her many physical ghosts. Do you have any questions
So
at
far,
this stage?
well, we should say that I'm a complete noob to
true.
Dota. I don't know what the fuck's going on. You're hopefully going to explain to me not only what's going on, basically in a fairly high-level Dota match, but also why I should give a fuck about any of it.
So the reason that picking and banning is cool is it mitigates any problem with balance the game might have. Like hero like Lycan, for example, might be considered overpowered in the current patch, but by having the capacity to ban him, he appears very rarely. Like that becomes the basis of a negotiation between captains. So here in the left, you can see there's a little crown above him, like that. A little crown above me. That's because I'm the captain here, and then Kane on the other side is my captain rival.
Gosh. So what's going on in this period of time when nobody's being banned then?
Discussions, partly.
Oh, okay, right.
So they've chosen to ban Brewmaster. So a nature of what might have just happened here is they've banned Lycanthrope, who's a generally very powerful hero, but also known for being good at pushing. I've banned Death Prophet, who's another hero that's been known to be good at pushing. Brewmaster's a hero that can stop pushes effectively.
Okay.
So we sort of felt each other out a bit at this point and determined that maybe... I mean, pushing is generally strong in this patch.
The fuck is that?
That's Doom. Doom is known for being able to shut down carries, basically. He's an anti-carry, and anti-carry is very big in this patch.
Okay.
Doom because his ultimate switches off someone's spells and items, and then slowly drains them of health until they die.
Right.
They are literally doomed, unless the duration of the spell wears off. So he's really good at shutting down a hero like Brewmaster, who relies very much on particular spells to be effective.
So are you being quite reactive here? You're looking at the last pick and then saying what kind of things you're going to go for, and then... Or are you...
To a limited extent. Like, Death Prophet, Doom are fairly standard first bans for me. Like, the first set, so it's 2 sets of 2, are often the same sorts of heroes, because you don't necessarily know your opponent.
Right.
So they've gone for Razor. Razor is another anti-carry. One of his abilities allows him to link himself to an enemy hero and slowly drain their damage and add it to his own.
Okay.
Which means he's good against heroes that scale well later. But because they've got the first initial pick, we now get to pick 2 heroes.
Dumb thicker question.
Yes.
Are you allowed to ban and pick in any order then?
No. There's a fixed order, and there's what's called... So, I'll explain our picks in a second.
So you've done 2 bans, and then you get to pick?
Both teams do 2 bans. Then the team that gets first ban then gets the first pick. And then the other team gets 2 picks.
Okay.
It's a very fixed order, and it's basically designed to create the most balanced possible situation where people are trading back and forth. So, in relation to Razor, I've picked Tidehunter, who's a really powerful offlaner, but basically a kind of utility offlaner. I play offlane, so this is actually the hero I'm going to play, is Tidehunter, who's known primarily for his ultimate Ravage, which is one of the largest AoE stuns in the game. It's a huge, basically tentacles fly out of the ground and a huge circular AoE, and do huge amounts of damage in teamfights. He's capable in other reasons that I'll explain when we get into the game, but he's a good counter for heroes like Razor, because Razor doesn't want to focus him to seal his damage because he's not really worth it. He has a flat damage reduction on Anchor Smash of 60%, which counteracts Razor's ability to steal damage. And Razor is very fast, but that AoE on that stun is so big that I'll probably catch him. In addition to that, we picked Shadow Shaman, who's another great support for pushing, because his ultimate allows him to summon a big nest of sort of damaging wards around a tower, for example, to take it down quickly. He's a good area denial hero as well, and also he can trap people, which is useful against Razor. They followed up by picking Treant Protector, who's another support, unique in the game for his ability to heal towers and buildings. So basically a conservative support, not someone who is going to help you push further or take objectives, but somebody who can slow the enemy's ability to do the same, which is probably why they picked him against Shadow Shaman.
So at what point during this process do you have like an overall plan for your match? What point does that kind of kick in?
you go in maybe
You
with
just
an idea.
made 2 extra bands there either side.
So yeah, so I explain these bands. I banned a character called Faces Void, who's very powerful at the moment. His ultimate creates a bubble that freezes time and all the characters within it, but he can move freely in that bubble.
Right.
However, certain things aren't stopped by his time bubble, and one of them is Razor's static link, which is what allows him to steal damage.
Okay.
So what Faces Void can do is freeze time while his friendly Razor is still stealing damage and buy him loads of extra time. So that ban for us was about removing that possibility.
Okay, yeah.
Because they've picked this, so I've gotten rid of the Void. They've gotten rid of Venomancer, who actually this isn't a great ban from them, I don't think, because although it ends up kind of helping us as well, but they ban Venomancer. Venomancer is another hero who's very good at pushing, primarily, but for one thing, Venomancer would probably be laned on the off lane if we were going to lane him anywhere, and we've already picked probably what is going to be our obvious off laner. That's point one. Point two is we don't really need any additional push than what we've got. They've assumed that we're going for mega push, just that's all we're going to do.
That's your first 2 picks.
Yeah, but if we don't do that, then we've still got strong pushing heroes, but we don't have to commit to the lineup in the way they think they do. Their fourth band, Tinker, is a hero who's very, very mobile, move around the map very quickly, and push multiple lanes at once. Again, they are thinking that we're just committing to this push strat. Admittedly, that push strat has been huge since the International 4. This is basically almost like a cynical run by them. This is them going, oh, these guys are just going to kind of cheese it with this sort of like rush strat. The fact that we're not actually going for that works to their detriment. But in our team chat at the moment, we're talking about kind of what to ban next. Like the reason for these pauses, like every team has a limited amount of time, which you can see here.
Yeah.
You have a set amount of time, which is 20 seconds to make your pick, and then for the entire round of picking and banning, the entire drafting phase, you have a pool of bonus time, which you eat into constantly. So you have finite bonus time to spend, but you have 20 seconds for each pick, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So a third ban is Lich, and this is maybe a more questionable ban from us as well, honestly, or from me, in hindsight, in that basically I was trying to deny them a certain amount of team fight synergy. Lich is a hero who lanes very strongly, is good at shutting down carries, but the reason I banned him is because we had started to suspect at this point that we might be able to run one of our rarer heroes that potentially does very well against Razor, and is a bit of a secret weapon for us. So, but Lich is a good counter to him for reasons I'll explain in a minute. We picked up the Sand King. Sand King is another hero we run a lot. Sand King is another support. So at the moment we've got our offlaner and our 2 supports. Sand King has an excellent stun. It's like a kind of dive. He dives to the ground and stuns everybody between him and his kind of exit point. On top of that, he's got an interesting escape, which is surrounded by an obscuring sandstorm, and an ultimate that he has to channel for a few seconds before it works, because there's an earthquake around him that travels with him and continues after he dies. Great teamfight hero. Piles on top of other things very well, but maybe requires a bit of setup from his allies, but we've already got the Tidehunter for that. So it's a good bit of synergy. They've gone for Skywrath Mage, who is a very popular choice at the moment because of his silence. Ancient Seal, which increases the magic damage that a hero receives and silences them, which prevents them from casting spells for a pretty substantial amount of time. And this actually was a big pain in the ass for us, because Skywrath is a big pain to deal with for a lot of the heroes we like to run mid. Heroes that rely on their spells to escape, for example, but with that single silence can be shut down and forced to stay where they are for a bit. So this was a moment for us where we were trying to figure out kind of how to respond to the Skywrath pick. Skywrath's weakness is that he's quite flimsy. He does massive amount of magic damage, a huge amount of output in terms of his ult, Mystic Flare, is one of the highest magic damage spells in the game, one of the highest mana costs as well. There are ways of mitigating magic damage, but you know what you're dealing with him. But if you can ambush him, he doesn't have very much help. Like he pops like that without support. So at this point, it was about figuring out what we were going to run mid, given that we had a carry in mind. So I actually can't remember what we picked. So bear with me.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, but this is the second pick now. And this point in the game, you're into the real politics of drafting, where there's still plenty of room for them to try and counterpick what we go for. But obviously, the die is cast to a certain extent, which is the kind of team you're going for.
What kind of team are you going for?
At the moment, we've kind of actually ended up, even though the Shadow Shaman made it look like we were going for
full on push.
For push, we've actually ended up with what's basically like a team fight lineup, where we've got Ravage, which is an excellent team fight ability, Epicenter, which is an excellent team fight ability, and the Serpent Wards, which is Shadow Shaman's kind of like big nest of wards.
Oh, yeah.
That are great for taking down towers, but they're also great for area denial inside team fights as well. They create big areas where enemies don't want to go.
And Fruity Elf Wizard?
Fruity Elf Wizard is a bit of a ballsy pick by us. He's one of Coxix, who's our mid player, one of his best heroes. So this guy, if you don't know Dota, he works like a Magicka hero. Rather than having regular abilities, he has 3 colours and a spell that turns those 3 colours into spells. He has more spells than anyone else in the game, but you combine the colours to create them. So he has, I think, 10 spells total.
Wow. And you do that just on the fly?
Yeah, you just tap.
Wow.
Yeah. So he works totally different to any other hero, but he's good on top of the setups because he can do far more in a small space of time than a lot of heroes. He's vulnerable to the silence from the Skywrath Mage, but we decided to risk it. They went for a hero called Luna, who is a kind of glass cannon carry. This is now their carry, we know this. She's fast, she does a lot of damage if she gets some levels, and she has a really good ult that hits everyone in a certain radius with like moon lasers, basically.
Okay.
But she has no health at all. So at this point we started to realise that all of their kind of durability was on Treant Protector. Meepo is our secret pick, and actually worked brilliantly. The moment they picked the Luna, we knew we were taking Meepo.
Okay, why?
Meepo is unique again in that he's more than one hero. At the beginning of the game he's one hero, then as he levels up he gets points in his ultimate, which is called Divided We Stand, and he creates clones of himself, which are fully autonomous clones. They gain XP separately from the main Meepo, but it all goes into a common pool.
You just micro them?
Yeah. You require excellent micro, and with the right items he goes up to 5 clones. So it's 5 separate instances of the same hero with separate cooldowns.
Wow, okay.
So this, like our carry player Robin knows how to play this hero, and reasonably well. But like when you draft Meepo, you need to know that they don't have things that can really shut down a group of massed heroes. For example, Lich's ult, the reason we banned him, bounces between heroes, and it's devastating with Meepo because Meepo can't separate from himself a lot of the time. Players can run away from each other to stop it from bouncing. Meepo struggles with that. When they picked the Luna, Luna's ult does less damage if there are more targets clustered, because it splits itself between targets.
Okay.
So Meepo suddenly became, we already had it in mind, and became an amazing pick. They ended with the Crystal Maiden, who's again really a solid support, but a fairly squishy one. So their weakness of their team at this point in the game was really that they had drafted, I think, 1, quite reactively, and 2, without a tremendous amount of survivability, except the Treant Protector's natural buffness and ability to heal other people, and the Razor's speed.
So at this point you kind of know what both team strategies are going to be overall?
Not necessarily. There's we assume from looking at their draft they're probably going to run something like a Treant or a Skywrath off lane, Luna on the safe lane, supported by the Crystal Maiden and possibly the Treant. I'm just going to quickly fix my camera controls because it's currently on auto and I didn't plan for this. Switch over. So one thing we're doing right at the beginning of the game is something we do quite often is rush to the enemy jungle. And where the hell are my camera controls? They are here. I need to set them to free camera. There we go. So, right. On our team we have Zoe on the Sand King, me on the Tidehunter, Robin on Meepo, Dan on Shadow Shaman. Going to mid at the moment is Coxix on the Invoker. On their team they have Kane on the Razor, probably going mid, L Pro on the Crystal Maiden, 1 OK Rock on the Luna, Rocket on the Treant Protector, and Tamara Nikolaevna on the Skywrath Mage. So what we've done immediately is gone to their side of the map with 4 of us. Invoker's not very useful at this point to go to their jungle. That ward I've just placed there blocks this camp, which is important. For various reasons.
Is that for them to farm it?
So this is important. We're looking for someone to pick off, but then we run into their entire team.
Oh my, okay.
This is bad.
So they're actually doing the same strategy that you're...
They're actually protecting their own jungle, but that first blood going to them is a bloody disaster. We've already lost 1, Shadow Shaman's down. I've done my damage reduction on a couple of them, but I'm going to go down now as well, at which point Meepo is in trouble, and Sand King isn't sure what to do, so Meepo manages to almost take down the Luna, but is ultimately getting zoned out. And as the damage from Razor's plasma field zooms out to this big radius and sucks back in, it does enough damage for them to get 4 kills before the match has even begun. Now this is one of the worst beginnings to a game of Dota that I think I've ever seen, definitely that I've ever been in. We now go to our lane, still level 1, with no money, from having lost all our money in that initial encounter. We go to our lanes just in time. You'll see me here blocking the creeps to try and slow down to push the creep people closer to our tower. But Robin now asks, can we have a do-over? Because that was such a big fuck-up. But we're going up against people who are now have a huge XP advantage. You see Luna here on her XP bar is close to level 2.
Oh yeah.
So Scarith Mage, one of the advantages of going solo against 2 people is the XP is split in your favour. You get a higher level, which helps to assuage the fact that you're on your own. Whereas they have 3 people. Crystal Maiden's already level 2. Razor is level 2 because he got that first blood. Treant Protector is level 1 but pretty close to level 2. So all the advantage we should have is basically gone. And even though I was able to zone out the Treant Protector because he's on his own and he's not a great offlane hero, I've basically got to resort to stacking Ancients to try and get my level advantage back later. Basically, we now have a huge deficit in experience. In fact, I can probably show you that.
So what's your overall, how much has your strategy changed at this point? Are you panicking? What's going
Basically panicking. Like, we actually thought we'd already lost. If you look at this, so this is different as XP earned, so this is 0 difference between the 2 teams here.
Yeah.
This means they're already miles ahead, like from the very beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Cox is already kind of in trouble in mid as Razor kind of moves in on him and starts stealing his damage with that link. In our jungle, meanwhile, we've pulled this creep wave to bring creep equilibrium closer to our tower. But Treant's kind of happy to sit here and soak up experience, whereas me, on the offlane, I'm getting zoned out by a Crystal Maiden, which isn't good. My main recourse at this point in the game is at the point where the clock hits about 53-54 minutes on the second to grab these ancient creeps. These are the toughest neutral creeps in the game. Pull them out of their spawn area and force them to respawn so that I can stack them up to take them later.
Oh,
so I'm building a slight economic advantage here to take later and try and pull back some of that deficit. Meanwhile, in the middle lane, Cox is just sort of leveling, but again, he's doing reasonably well against a Razor who's been forced to take it back because he's low on health. But it's a very disadvantageous start. If I pull up the graph for net worth, you can see that Razor is miles ahead of everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the total worth of the gold in someone's pockets and also the items they're holding. They've got 3 people substantially ahead of us. Almost our entire team is in the middle, and their supports are much lower down. Our supports are doing a decent job of maybe keeping the farms safe for Meepo, but it's probably unlikely at this point that they're going to kill the Treant Protector. He's pretty tough.
Right.
Down here, back with us. I'm doing okay, but it's pretty difficult for me to get close to the lane. Bear in mind, I don't have this vision to say that I know where the Crystal Maiden and the Scarith are. I have to be very careful because I don't have vision basically in this area here where I'm pinging. This means that I have to be wary of them running out of the jungle at any time to kill me, and I probably won't escape if they do, because there are 3 of them. So I've broken a tree here to provide myself a route through this way.
Okay.
But yes, here's Scarith again, here comes the Crystal Maiden, exactly what I just said they would try and do. I think I do die here. Maybe I don't. It's going to be close either way. No, so just by full-on running away and eating a tree to get some health back, I managed to get away. But Dan, really fast-fingered, managed to get in on a TP scroll and actually pick up a kill on the Skywrath Mage. But that's just a bit of communication on our part. Like, I'm in trouble. But by carrying a TP scroll, Dan managed to get in to lock down and ultimately kill their vulnerable Skywrath Mage. So we're really on the board now with kills. Meanwhile, Zoe is in the jungle stacking camps. Sand King is one of Sand King's abilities is interesting. At this point, Dan is stacking my camp for me because I was too low on health to do it. One of the things that's interesting about Sand King is his ability called Sandstorm, which creates a kind of damaging sandstorm around him and he's invisible at the centre of it. And that allows him to basically farm up big groups of neutral creeps without taking any damage. Meanwhile, in mid, Cox, and this is called duking, and Cox is now dead. When you try and evade someone around the tower, unfortunately, Razor's static field, he does to the tower as well. But, quick reaction from our support to try and turn that around, but not quite fast enough. Razor's plasma field just doesn't give a shit about whether it's got line of sight to you or not. It just fans out, and that was probably a bit cocky by Cox to get himself that involved. You can now see there are 2 Meepos already, so because Robin's level 4, so he's now got his second Meepo.
Can they be in infinite amounts of distance apart? Are they?
Yes.
Oh wow.
They
Okay.
can move separate lanes, farm separate lanes. One of them can farm the jungle.
Good lord. Okay, that's
one of the reasons. So one of the important things about the hero is that he farms faster than almost anyone else for that reason. Meanwhile, in the offlane, I'm still sort of farming away. One of the reasons that I'm a bit weaker as Tidehunter against the Luna, one of the reasons they possibly pick Luna, is Anchor Smash, which is this ability, does damage reduction. And one of the reasons that's powerful is if you're up against another melee hero, you can Anchor Smash them when they come up to get last hits in the lane. There's a fight going on mid, as I think they go for the Razor. Locking him down. So he gets a stun off there and manages to just escape while Cox kills the Razor with an ability called Sunstrike, which is global, one of Invoker's most sort of powerful skills in a way, because you can cast anywhere on the map on a fairly hefty cooldown. Great for snipes, you see it a lot in skill videos. Meanwhile, I'm being gone on again. I think I'm probably dead here. Yeah. Very little I can do while the people are engaged mid. Dan came in, but slightly too late to do anything about it. What was I talking about? So one of the reasons that Tidehunter is good against a melee hero, for example, is you can go up to them as they're about to get their last hits in the lane, anchor smash them, and so they do 60% less damage, which makes it comparatively much harder for them to find that farm.
Okay.
However, while
we're last hit denier thing.
Yeah, so basically you make it harder for people to farm, which is a good criteria of being a successful offlaner, because you don't just want to survive, you don't just want to get some money and some experience for yourself. You want to, if possible, do as much as you can to slow down the progress of their carry. So one of the reasons Treant Protector isn't a great pick for them is he's not doing very much to slow down the progress of Meepo, who's now actually in a position to do a fairly significant amount of damage to him. Meepo's damage comes from... oh shit, in fact Robin might be in big trouble here, I didn't see this kill in the game. If it is a kill. A big part of Meepo's damage, he needs a net. So he has a net that he can throw on people. If he can throw that net, he's not dead. Oh, that was very close. But Trent just got it, and will probably heal up now.
Huh.
So, Meepo, all of his Meepos have an ability that allows them to teleport to any other Meepo. And when they teleport, they do damage at the point where they exit and the point where they arrive. It's called poofing. So that's what the ability is called. So Meepo is capable of doing huge amounts of burst damage fairly quickly by kind of stagger poofing onto himself while surrounding a target.
I see.
And you'll see Robin do that a few times. But the moment the game is kind of settled a bit, we're massively behind in terms of kills. But we haven't yet lost any kind of exterior objectives. All of our tier 1 towers, which are this furthest most set, are still there. And the same true for the enemy. We are behind, we haven't really got a substantial advantage, although Cox is farming well, which is, you know, I guess, in our favour.
Do you see a plan forming from the enemy team at this stage?
Not really. They've sort of settled into passive farming as well, which you see often in these kinds of games. There's maybe a Skywrath here trying to get kills, but they're thinking maybe about getting pick-off kills, which they're probably going to find here on me again. I die a lot in this game, spoilers. But they are not pushing for objectives, and actually I think it's possibly a mistake. They have such an advantage here in terms of XP, almost 2,500 after 8 minutes, which is a lot, that they could be pressuring towers here, and there's not a huge amount that we could do. Razor's having a go, but it's not a massive amount.
So is it a mistake on their part that they aren't pushing towers?
To an extent. They could be cockier than they're being. Zoe here gets caught out while trying to TP away, goes invisible, but they have a lot of AoE damage that hits the ground, so this invisibility is probably not going to save her, but she just manages to wiggle away. She was caught out there because the Crystal Maiden... no, she doesn't. The Crystal Maiden picked up an invisibility rune, which is a special item that either appears here or here every 2 minutes. It could be an invisibility rune, it could be many other power-ups, but happened to get an invisibility, which is unlucky. I've now got level 6, which means I have Ravage, which is my ultimate, which is one of the main reasons I got killed earlier. But you notice how much damage that Luna's doing to me because of her level advantage. She's level 8, which means she's already maxed out Lucent Beam, which is her kind of like, you see that laser come down, that's that nuke. Where the hell was that kill? I don't really know why Matt was here. I'm glad that he was, because he successfully killed that Treant Protector and died to Razor's Plasma Field again. Robin at this point has kind of gone into the jungle to pick up these stacks, so his farm is going to accelerate a lot faster now that he's in a position to kind of start farming these with his Meepos. Meanwhile, Zoe's in mid to protect that, and I'm just sort of struggling along. I think at this point in the game I was telling my teammates, like, please just bail me out in this lane. One of the weaknesses in our play at the moment, if you ask me, is that we sometimes don't respond to their safe lane fast enough. We're good at shutting down mid and off lane, but sometimes I feel a bit alone. A bit alone on my lane. See here, I've had to go all the way back to the fountain just to get my health back. But what they're not doing, now that I can see this, is stacking their jungle particularly well. They're not making the most out of their jungle, which gives us potential to get some farm back in other areas.
Is that because they're being distracted by just picking you guys off? Or?
I think it's because they're doing well. I think it's because maybe they don't feel like they have to. See, I've TP'd back now with my health and mana, but Dan's only level 4. I'm level 6, so it's possible we might be able to pick something up, but it's less likely. However, Zoe getting a haste rune here means that she's moving at maximum movement speed, which means that potentially there's a stun to be had. So you see Zoe move around, we're going for that Luna, we kind of want to finally shut down their carry. But the Skywrath Mage is coming in, I've seen him. He silenced me, So silence on the Tidehunter. I'm going to try and ravage as fast as I can. There's the ravage out with the stun on several. Cox comes in from the side. I'm probably in trouble, but the Treant Protector ult goes off, locking everybody in place, while the Lunar ult comes out and does huge amounts of damage to the Sand King. It's based on the level of her Lucent Beam. Razor comes in from the side, and this team fight that we had the advantage at the beginning turns into a complete disaster. They pick up 4 kills for basically nothing, as we're unable to kind of get a kill off. We had a decent opening, but we didn't have the damage output after that opening to actually secure any of those kills. If we could have burst down the Luna, for example, then we could have potentially taken a kill there and stopped the ult before it killed the Sand King. But one of the reasons that happened is our support's level 5 and level 4. That early kill has really hurt us in terms of experience, and that means no ults. That means none of those big ults are going to come out. The only good thing for Team Hot Jukes in that, because we're about to lose this tower, is that Robin wasn't there. That for the entire duration of that fight, he was out farming somewhere else. We came in to try and respond to that to the extent that we could, but there really wasn't much we could do. However, this Luna's sticking around allowed to get stunned by the Sand King. That's the Scarif Mage ult coming in there. Silence on the Sand King. I managed to Anchor Smash, but then the Crystal Maiden ult, which is what the Ice Shard's flying in now, is managed to pick off both me, Cox, and chase down Dan, just about. So another 3 kills for nothing on their team. Luna gets away again. Robin comes in, but he's immediately picked on by the Razor and killed. So 9 for 0 in 2 successive encounters now.
This is generally speaking quite bad in terms of a Dota game, right?
This is a disaster. I think at this point in our team chat, I actually streamed this game initially. This was on my Twitch chat. Zoe goes in again to try and do something, but she gets picked off. And her only option is to sit there in her Sandstorm trying to escape. Meanwhile, I'm here for some reason that I don't fully understand. Running away only by virtue of the fact that my character's quite tanky. Invoker managed to pick off, I missed that kill, Invoker managed to pick off the Razor there. But at this point they do get a bit cocky. They feed a kill to Zoe there on the Crystal Maiden. And the Luna, basically they're massively out of position in a way that they've rather than stick on our tower, they've gone past the tower to try and get these kills. And ended up feeding us 3 kills. So it goes from being 9 for 0 to 10 for 3 over the course of a couple of encounters. But that's still very, very bad. And I remember on the stream, this was the first game that we cast as this team, feeling like, God, this is our first game, really. It's like one of the worst starts we've ever had. But this is a huge stack of Ancients, and because of particular interaction between Tidehunter's ability to reduce damage and his passive ability, which improves his damage reduction, he's able to basically tank these and take them out very slowly.
Wow, okay, all of them at the
yeah,
same time.
basically at the same time. Dan's helping me because I'm a bit underleveled for it, but this was a sort of desperation move by us. I'm kind of sacking off my health in order to... Meepo goes down there to the Scarif Mage and the Treant Protector. I'm sacking off my health to try and lower these to the point where I can farm them quickly. I'm rushing for an item called the Blink Dagger that allows me to teleport, because that'll allow me to jump onto the enemy team and secure them. I'm going to back off now because I'm actually so low, and I'm low on mana to the extent that I can't keep Anchor Smashing to reduce their damage. Meanwhile, Invoker puts some pressure on on bot, while Zoe in mid just sort of fends them off a bit. They're kind of engaged in a de-warding war here, but she's probably in trouble. And if that Crystal Maiden can get a... Yeah, that's a disable from the Crystal Maiden.
Oof.
And... Yeah, another kill. 22 for 8 at this point. A lot of it, at this point, you'll notice we've lost all 3 of our exterior towers. A lot of this is on whether or not they choose to double down on their advantage and basically push to end the game at this point, because they probably could. Robin is now in the jungle, picking up jungle camps because we're not in a position to support him on his lane, and they're just rampaging down it, taking anything they want. On the bottom lane, we're doing a decent job of keeping it pushed towards them, maybe to the point where we can take a tower eventually, but it's nothing we can do yet. I'm still working on this ancient stack that we are restacking and trying to whittle down so I can take it. But again, Meepo goes down top, Zoe barely survives, and that's only because they don't have any ground targeted AoE they can use at this particular point. Cox comes in, summons some allies in the form of Forge Spirits, but is pulled up by the Treant Protector ult, locked down, and it's only Zoe's posthumous Epicenter, that Earthquake, that takes the kill on the Treant Protector. Great disable there from Dan, basically saves Cox's life, but Dan himself pays for it by dying to the Scarif Mage. Meanwhile, on the bottom lane, these guys are just happily farming away, while I knew they were here on the right-hand side, but I had to take these Ancients. Because the other danger is that they sweep in, see some low-level Ancients, take them for themselves. 25 to 10 is really, really bad. That was Sunstrike coming down somewhere, but I don't know exactly where. I could hear it. Right, so now I'm kind of caught out because I'm stuck between them. But I do have Ravage, my ultimate, so potentially I can at least drag him towards the Meepo, get that Ravage off, and turn around and maybe turn this into something we can use. But I am in trouble with low health, and that Invoker, that Razor at this point has stolen 224 points of damage, which is massive.
Yeah.
Meepo manages to jump ahead and grab the Crystal Maiden, but Razor does a huge amount of damage, basically just obliterates the Meepo in 2 hits because he's stolen so much from me. And again, Sand King dead as well.
Yeah, not looking...
Like, this is one of the reasons Razor is deadly at the moment. Really popular hero for this exact reason. But, with a long disable and enough burst damage, you can try and turn this around. Shadow Shaman goes down, but again, they do make the mistake of diving past the tower rather than doubling down on their advantage and just pushing the tower over. Cox is basically able to effectively lead them away from the tower, at least for a moment. They do eventually turn around and get that right. And so losing a tier 2 at this point, huge disadvantage, not only because it means they've got direct access to our base now and our barracks, but because you can only use a teleport scroll to teleport to a friendly building. So as you watch our towers get pushed back, we're also looking at our effective teleport range getting pushed back. They can teleport to any point they like on their side of the map, because they have everything. We have basically nothing. And at this point, with our ults off cooldown, we basically have to desperately try and repel this push mid, so they don't take the same advantage there. But at least at this point, we are in a position to fight as a group. I hit a Gush on the Razor to slow him down, and then I can smash the creeps. This is kind of desperation move because I know I'm not really useful in this fight. But Robin is, and he's capable at very least of bringing his other Meepos to burst down the Razor, but it's not enough. Good stun from Zoe, hits 3, but doesn't catch. But Dan's Serpent Ward Trap does catch the Razor in the middle of them, so he can't escape, getting the kill there. Which is enough to basically force them to run away. We got 2 for 2. Sunstrike just basically doesn't do anything to the Crystal Maiden. We got 2 for 2, but it's a desperation win, I'd say. Like, we lost. These wards are great for pushing towers by deploying them in that team fight just to get kill on the Razor. We're using them to defend, and that means that we're naturally in a weaker position. We're reacting. We're not taking any objectives for ourselves. I'm going back to Laven's point with my ultimate 15 seconds off cooldown to try and pick up any farm I can. I've got almost 1900 gold, which is about 200 off a Blink Dagger, which is a big item for me. Robin goes back to the jungle to find his farm. But basically all we can do is play like we're not definitely going to lose. Because basically everything is against us at this point. Even Zoe moving forward falls afoul of the Tree and Protector ult, which actually in this case doesn't actually do anything. But this Crystal Maiden was carrying Dust of Appearance, which causes her to appear from her invisibility, and it's all that she can do to run away as we come in to try and respond to it. But is it enough to get killed? No. I go back to the Ancients, try and farm up my economic advantage. But you can see that we're contained basically entirely in this side of the map. There's no way for us to go anywhere else safely. And their carries and their characters can start setting up attacks anywhere they want. Their Tree and Protector has a Blink Dagger, which allows them to initiate for their team. Luna's in their jungle, happily farming away with some good items already. And this Razor really is running away with the game. He's got a mechanism which allows him to heal himself and his team, which makes him even harder to kill than he was previously. He's just kind of fishing there, going for the Shadow Shaman, who's a little bit out of position. Basically with just the Invoker to protect him. We're a bit split out. The Tree and Protector's blinked in between us, basically splitting up our team as we try and run back to our base. It's basically sacrificing the Shadow Shaman to secure a retreat for the other 4 of us. To be in this position at 19 minutes in is a disaster. You do not want to be desperation defending your tier 3 towers. They go at this point and pick up the low-level Ancients that I was doing just earlier. So it's, let's have a look at the XP graph. At this point, 10,000 in their favour.
Jesus Christ.
Gold, just over 10,000 in their favour. They are miles ahead. If you look at the XP graph, so the red is our tiers on my team, the Hot Jukes.
Is there a point at which it becomes impossible to pull it back?
I don't think a pro team has ever won from a 25,000 disadvantage.
Oh, okay.
So my ult here catches 4 of them. Robin comes in and we immediately burst down the Luna. We've got the spells coming in. An amazing ward trap on the Razor. Basically means that they can't do anything. Then the Crystal Maiden's down as well. Dan gets an amazing disable on the Skywrath Mage, and we are now 5-0 in that fight, and they did not see that coming.
What the fuck? How did that happen?
What happened is I got my Blink Dagger.
Huh.
Which meant that I could teleport the distance to get my Ravage off. So what I did at the beginning of that fight, I'm sorry I didn't catch it, I was talking about something else, was blink to here, basically, which was in the middle of where their team were coming in, and caught 4 of them in that initial ravage. And that couple of seconds of disable, how long is it exactly? Just over 2 seconds of disable, was the beginning of a series of good plays by everyone else. It gives that moment of initiation where everyone else can start to do anything. So we take our first tower off the back of that, and push as fast as we can while they're still dead to take something else. But that's the danger of a Tidehunter. That ult, if they don't build the items to deal with it, can give the rest of the team the chance to deal with it. So we had the Epicenter as well, we had the Meepo poofing on top of everybody, and we had spells from the Invoker, so that Meteor crashed to the earth, that was him. So at this point we rotate to top. We're not interested in pushing too deep into their base at the moment, even though they're quite deep in our territory. We're trying to take the early ground that we missed out on taking, because they were basically stomping all over our faces.
Can I ask how much of that fundamental attack was coordinated by you guys? Was that something you planned, or was it just something that came together at the last second?
I would say something like that, a team fight like that, is muscle memory. Like, that is, we have to fight here, but we all know what that means. So the exact order the fight will go is something that we understand before we've even played this game. Right? It's probably going to be me going in first, followed up by everybody else. But in terms of us all being ready, we knew that we all had our ultimate abilities, we knew that we were ready to do something like that. It was about making sure that we were all together at the right time to capitalise on their position.
Okay.
So, you know, so Invisaruna spawn bottom at this point, and as our wave pushes in bot with the catapult. At this point, we're kind of in our jungle trying to get what farm advantage we can. At this point, we did know that they were coming through our jungle, probably to try and secure this tier 3 tower. Sorry, tier 2 tower. They have a tree protector. Tree protector can make himself invisible as long as he's standing near trees. So he's a good scout in this situation. He's just sort of walking from group of trees to group of trees. But we are all holding quite far back. Our ultimates are just about to come off cooldown again, so we can fight again if we need to. And this is again another point of defense. They're committing to the tower, but they're being a bit more cautious about it than they were last time. I die, unfortunately, at this point before I can get my ult off. Well, that's a good meteor from plus deafening blast from the Invoker. It's not enough to hold them back long enough to prevent us basically losing 3 people for nothing. So having had that last victory in that team fight, we've now lost a lot of it to just basically bad positioning by us and good focusing by them. They took down the Tidehunter straight away before I could use Ravage. The only positive thing, ironically, is that in Dota, you see the XP advantage we started to pull back as soon as we took that fight, but then it dips back up again. When you're lower level, you respawn faster. So we're going to be back a little bit faster because we're low level. And because I didn't have a chance to use my ult before I died, it's now off cooldown. So we are in a position to defend this, but they are pushing into our base at 23 minutes, and that's bad, to say the least. Deafening Blast goes out from the Invoker, but doesn't do very much. I walk in, but I am silenced, but the Ravage does go off shortly before I get too low to continue the fight. Ice Wall from the Invoker, he's focused down, but great reaction by the Robin, by the Meepo. The wards come in, take out the Tree Protector as well, and Robin managed to lock down the Razor so he can't run away, and finish him as well. So 4 for 1, and we've defended the base. The Luna escapes at this point. She's fast naturally, but I think correctly Robin has to go farm the jungle instead, take some advantage elsewhere. You see him poofing, moving Meepos from one camp to the other to the extra damage. Which is probably the correct decision. Chasing that kill at the expense of maybe just taking what advantage you can while the map is relatively safe is probably the thing to do. So I'm here now, trying to pick up farm. As Tidehunter, you're kind of a walking ult. Your other abilities are good, but your usefulness in a team fight is predicated on whether or not you can get the ult off and how many people you hit with it. So you won't see me sort of build any more huge items like this again for the rest of the game. Like now I've got my blink, I have my arcane boots that allow me to refill my mana or my teammates' mana, and kind of set. Meanwhile, mid, Cox's item choice is basically to go for survivability. He has phase boots that allow him to run faster for brief periods of time. He has a force staff which allows him to shunt himself or an ally forward or backwards. Sorry, in the direction they're facing. And he has a Yule Scepter which makes him faster passively and allows him to sort of sweep himself or an ally or an enemy up in a cyclone that makes them immune to damage for the duration that they're in the cyclone. So all these things give you options to dodge stuff, basically. Robin has his Aghanim Scepter, which is ultimate. It's an ability that upgrades ultimates. In Meepo's case, that means he gains an extra Meepo. And shortly he's going to be going for Boots of Travel, which allows him to teleport more freely around the map. In fact, he's probably working on that on his Meepos right now. A lot of supports, however, are actually doing alright. Dan's managed to get a Blink Dagger and the first part of an Aghanim Scepter for himself, which is actually really good going for a position 5 in a match like this. It's partly because he's been surviving a lot of the fights we've had. But as the enemy team moves down mid, my ult is 23 seconds off cooldown. We've got to be really careful about fighting here. In fact, Robin's probably a bit brave by him. He gets locked down here and killed. And if one Meepo dies, they all die. So that's not good. And we're not necessarily in a position to defend this without him. So he was backing out here. Me and Dan backing away at the top, and the tower basically goes down from nothing. Again, sloppy positioning just leads to them taking an easy advantage. And this is really testament to how far ahead they are, that if we make a small mistake, they just steamroll us. However, at this point our ults are back up. So, waiting for the Ravage to go off, but just get it off before I die.
Yeah.
The epicenter comes in, taking out 2. The ward trap traps 2. Amazing play by Dan. The Evoker does die, so at this point 4 for 2, now 4 for 3. But again, fingernail stuff, but hanging on by a thread with only their 2 supports, the Scarith Mage and the Crystal Maiden, still alive, which basically means they've got no potential to push any further at this point. They don't have the physical damage to take down a tower. Towers are immune to magic, most magic. So having heroes to do a lot of spell damage is useless when you're trying to break base. And Meepo's back. One of Meepo's passive bonuses is he respawns very quickly, which is to counteract the fact that he dies very easily, because he has 5 of him and they all die at once. And you'll notice that even though the game is going really badly, Robin and Meepo and Invoker are still doing well to stay fairly high up the net worth chart, whereas I'm right here on the bottom. Poor, sad fish guy.
Oh man. So do you have an action plan at this point to push things back, or are you just kind of scrabbling to...
Well, at this point we've ascertained that we can actually win team fights. You'll notice that they have... Oh, they hadn't blocked it, I thought they had. We can actually win fights if we're all together, we have our ultimates, and the circumstances are right. Despite the XP disadvantage, it started to even out a bit. Yeah. It started to even out because we're taking those fights in our base. And that means that we have to play rather passively. We have to stay on our side of the map, only push to their side of the map when we have a clear advantage. At this point we suspected they might try and do Roshan, so we used Invoker's minions that he can summon, these forged spirits, to basically scout to find out where their enemy team was safely. Turns out they were looking for Roshan, but they feel now that's the Sunstrike coming in, which again gives us vision. Basically, we know they know we know. So you'll notice they back off, probably waiting for a counterattack from us by repositioning to here, but actually we're kind of happy to wait for them to make a move.
Right. Because
it makes more sense for them to make a move than it does for us to make a move at this point. But they really want that Roshan, because that Roshan basically makes the fight 6v5. The Aegis of the Immortal that he drops, this item, brings you back to life when you die. So if they push our base with that, then maybe it's the Luna they give it to, she can just come back. Right, it makes our team fight much less effective, which is basically what's keeping us in the game at this point. The Treant Protector comes in and lands his ult, which routes everyone to the place, but Robin's poof damage in this small area is really powerful, and that's a perfect channel for that Meteor, and they immediately lose the Luna. Cox well burns himself up in the air to escape the Shadow Shaman, escape the Crystal Maiden, while Meepo finally does die to the combination of the Treant Protector and the Razor. Crystal Maiden goes down to the Invoker, and they're forced to disengage, and they've lost 3 for 3. But more importantly, they can't realistically contend the Roshan at this point. But still, as with earlier in the game, every victory that we're taking at this point is a denying them something good rather than getting something good for ourselves. We're kind of forced to go back and just, you know, pick up some farm where we can get it. This lane kind of pushed in, so it's ready gold for the Invoker, but I've only just respawned and I'm kind of, it's kind of scraping from fight to fight at this point. I'm basically useless outside of the cooldown of my ultimate, and that's 150 seconds between fights, which is substantial. However, I will say this, their farming experience did slow down. Gold difference is basically as it was, but the XP difference is now actually very slightly in our favour. Which is, I think, because we were getting more XP out of the fights, which is part of it, but also they were not farming effectively. They've hit a point that I think a lot of teams hit where you gain an advantage, the last challenge that faces you is breaking base, which is always harder than anything else. And you're not sure, you don't really necessarily want to split up to farm different parts of the jungle, which they're now doing, because it feels like giving up your advantage. But it's kind of what you should do, just to give yourself the power you need to make that final push. Meanwhile, Zoe sort of scanned the tent to try and pick up some farm on bot lane, is repelled immediately by the raise from the Crystal Maiden. We're having to gather up to take our Ancients at this point, but we're kind of splitting the XP between multiple people at the very least, to make sure that we can farm them effectively. And Robin is still going. Like, that's the big strength of Meepo. He now got his Boots of Travel, which allow him to... They're like teleport scrolls. Usable every minute, and you can teleport to any friendly unit on the map except another hero. So he can now teleport to our own creep waves.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which means the fact that we've now lost all of these exterior towers is less of an issue because we can teleport Meepo to anywhere where our creeps are. So where our creeps push out, we can get Meepo there straight away. At this point, we decide to risk something and try and do Roshan ourselves with just the Meepo, because Meepo can solo Roshan. I'm just going to stand here to be ready with my ultimate if they try and respond to this, or if they see it. This is fucking dangerous.
How would they know? Just if they stumble across it?
Or if they notice that Robin is missing from
Right,
the map.
okay.
Like, oh, where the fuck... Like, if none of the Meepos are anywhere on the map, they all have to be somewhere. And the Roche Pit, from the Dire side, they have slightly better access to it. We can sneak in without being seen. But it's very lucky that Robin wasn't seen... Oh, this was one of our wards, actually. Wasn't seen by this ward here. We managed to sneak the Roshan and put it on the Meepo.
Right.
Which means that they will all come back to life if he dies.
Yeah.
Which is a real coup for us. Should have a big effect on the graph and maybe on the XP. Yeah, so we're now kind of comfortably into an XP advantage because they didn't think to scout for that, because they basically prevaricated on their victory. Like, they should have checked to see if we'd do it, but probably the assumption was that we are so far behind, or have been for so much of the game, you know, still 42 kills to 28, that we wouldn't risk a Roche, because if we lose that Roche and they take it, you know, they could sweep in at the last minute, kill the Meepo, kill Roshan, we'd probably lost the game. But now, Meepo with his Aegis can be a bit more aggressive. He can go straight for this, he can go straight for the Razor, and even though he dies here, which is probably not the best idea, because ultimately Sunstrike misses, because he cuts the move for nothing, gives the rest of us, our team, a time to arrive and try and pick something else. Giving away the Aegis like that wasn't good. I remember talking about this at the time. We were worried that he'd kind of blown it. But it did finally give us time to get in. I came in from behind with the Ravage, with the Epicenter in, the Burrow Strike as well. And we ultimately took 3 kills here for the Meepo, which is our carry, but it's 3 kills and a tower, which is big for us. It's, again, slowly trying to crawl it back. And there, Luna is forced to retreat, and so is the Razor.
So with the XP, does it really matter? You say you have an XP advantage now, right? But does it matter in which units you have that, or is it? Yes,
more powerful ults are always good. At this point, we worried that we maybe pushed too far, but we managed to get the Shadow Shaman wards, which you can see here on the tower, which means that they're being cleaned up fairly quickly by the Luna, but they're going to do a fair bit of damage to the tower. It's almost on 3rd health now. As that Razor kind of realises that he's actually bitten off more than he can chew by chasing 2 low-level people, and you see the Meepo coming in already. Boom. So Robin respawned, teleported to a Forge Spirit summoned by Matt, came in and killed the... And then, as they overextend, thinking that they've successfully pushed us back, the power of that Meepo starts to be felt in the game. Let's have a look at the net worth.
Oh yeah.
Cox has basically matched the Luna at this point, which is great going. And as they try and defend, they just actually can't survive the poof damage. So what Robin's doing there, the reason that's impressive is he's tabbing between all of the Meepos to get them all to jump. So it requires a lot of really fast-fingered micro. But now, having taken our first tier 2, we're in a much better position. Hopefully the golds reflects that as well. Yeah, certain dip. When a tower goes down, the gold bounty for the tower, rather than just simply going to the person that hits it last, they get slightly more, but the entire team gets a bonus. So that's a big influx of gold going towards our support, particularly. They're getting a lot more out of that. I, at this point, picked up a Perseverance, which is the first part of an ability, an item called a Refresher Orb, which allows me to refresh the cooldown on all of my abilities once every 3 minutes, which potentially allows me to ult twice in a fight, which is basically all I'm rushing for at this point, because I realised that I was so underleveled in other ways that the only way I could be useful to the team was by getting my ult, making my ult as effective as it could be. And in the first case that means positioning, making sure it's used correctly. In the second case it means doing it twice. Cox now picked up an Aghanim Scepter, which allows he can invoke spells faster and use a bigger variety of spells. and he's going for, I believe, a Scythe of Vice, which allows you to turn an enemy into a pig, which is a good way of shutting down their more powerful carries for a small amount of time. They've realised that they're going to struggle against us in a team fight at this point, so they're gathering up mid. 4 and 5. No, it's 5 and 5 at this point because even though a lot of the meepos are over here, we have 1 meepo here, which means all of the meepos can be there.
Oh, you just teleported.
The goes in, goes off, but they have 2 Black King bars, which is this swirling golden effect. So they ignore the effect of my ult, but the follow-up damage from the meepo, which goes through Black King bar, is enough to kill the Crystal Maiden. Robin keeps going, he's going to go down here to the Razor. But the Razor is Yule-Scepted by Cox. We managed to take down 1 more, the Luna. But that Razor is doing absolute work at this point. He's got Pipe on him, which reduces his magic damage, which massively nullifies what the Invoker can do. Invoker's supposed to turn invisible to escape. I'm still in the fight, but I'm just reducing his damage. I'm not actually hurting him very much, but he's not doing as much as he would be, because that's 60% damage reduction, and it's really, really close at this point, but he just manages to kill me. But it's all on this decision by Matt to attack him, and there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Deafening Blast prevents him from right-clicking, and the right-click damage from Cox finishes him off. So that's 5 for 4 in our favour, which, on our 4th, is so low level that he has to go home, but it could be a lot worse.
Oh yeah, well the numbers are coming back up, aren't they, for you?
Yes,
much
they are.
Closer.
Cox now at the top of the net worth, with followed by their 2 carries, followed by Meepo, followed amazingly by Shadow Shaman, who's actually on position 5, which is an extraordinary performance by Dan. Those 7 wards really doing work. But you see, gold is now even, and XP is now almost 10,000 in our advantage.
Gosh.
And that is just from a series of really good team fights in a row.
When you're farming, you can pretty much manage which characters get the XP, but that's not the case in team fights, is it? Or does it naturally?
It's not, but surviving longer in a team fight will net you more. I gained a bunch of levels in that last fight because I managed to survive for quite a long time through it. I died right at the end of the Razor, but sort of stuck it out for a long time. But that's not to say that we're sort of not still at a disadvantage in some ways. They have a lot of map control relative to us. But Robin's starting to pull that back a bit. He's sort of really upped his game in terms of farming. You know, he's sort of quickly clearing these waves and moving on elsewhere. Having now picked up a Reaver, which gives him a big strength bonus, a lot of health. A Blink Dagger of his own. And that's progressing towards a Heart of Tarask, which means he has a huge amount of health. So each individual Meepo now has 2,500 health, which is a lot. If you think my entire health there, Cox's entire health pool is 1,700, mine is 1,300. So 1 Meepo. So Meepo is worth 10 of me at this point in terms of just health in a fight. And this is the point where our durability, I think, starts to outlast their damage output, but not quite enough in this instance to save Zoe's Sanking. But they're farming well as well. They picked up Black King bars, which, as I said in the last fight, is the item that gives you magic immunity on 2 of the heroes, the Razor and the Luna, which is basically to dodge those initial ults, the Sanking ult, the Tidehunter ult.
Are they being reactive here, or are they pushing?
They are reacting. Like a Black King bar and Razor isn't necessarily always going to be the case, but it was sort of a necessity. The thing about Black King bar is the first time you use it, it gives you magic immunity for 10 seconds. Every subsequent time, it's reduced by a second down to 4 seconds. So even though at this point we knew that our initiation was going to be less effective, you see it coming in now. There's the Ravage. Does hit everyone this time. Wards go down, trap the Luna who's stuck in the wards. I die to concentrated fire from the Luna ult, but Trainer Protector is down. Cox manages to just about focus the thing. No, he goes down to the Scarif Mage. Razor has been sheepsticked. Locked in place by the Meepo. Close to being 4th, 5th, and it's a total wipe for them. A 3 for 5 trade in our favour. Again, amazing ward positioning, trapping the Luna. She popped her BKB, but that's physical damage from the ward, so it's going to ignore the magic immunity from the Black King bar. And this gives us an opportunity to finally put some pressure on this initial bottom tower. Meanwhile, the other Meepos are in mid, doing the same thing there.
So you're actually taking the offensive now, really?
Well, they're all dead. So we're finally in a position where the disadvantage is less severe. Obviously, we don't have access to these graphs in the game. We don't necessarily know that we're 8,000 ahead in terms of XP, 2,000 ahead in terms of gold.
Sure.
You know, we are having to sound it out, but we know that we're safe. Meepo takes that mid tier 2. Managed to get all those Meepos to bot. Take another tier 1. This is a large amount of golden experience going our way. The score is now a palindrome.
Oh yeah? So it is.
We normally point out that the score is a palindrome in games that we lose.
Okay.
The score is nonetheless a palindrome. sort of inching towards that refresher orb, just picking up the various items that comprise it, but not really getting very much done. Honestly, this isn't the game where I particularly cover myself in glory. It's just those ults. Like I'm a walking R button basically in this game. But at this point, the confidence is back a bit. We've pulled some of the map back from them. They have to be more cautious about leaving their base now. And in terms of having a plan, which we were asking about earlier, we know that we can win the team fights, especially from a defensive position. So, for example, this is the timer for Roshan. Like, it's ticking down. Roshan will be back up soon. If we can control Roshan, which we've got an advantage in doing because we're on the dire side, then these are the kinds of engagements that we know we can win, and we can take an objective off the back of.
Does killing Roshan again give you a second Aegis?
Yep, he drops an Aegis every time. The third time he dies in a game, he drops cheese, as well as the Aegis.
Delicious.
Cheese is a second item that restores a huge amount of health.
Okay.
This is an opportunistic pick-off on the Skywrath Mage. I jump in here with 1 second to go on my ult. Just waiting. There's the Ravage, catches 2. Skywrath Mage goes down, and the Treant isn't long for this world either, so this is...
Lovely.
2 of their supports dead. The Luna comes down the side, and this is a real mistake. They shouldn't have committed to this.
So
wards go down. No, wards go down, but that damage from the Luna Rot is split between all of our heroes. That's 3 down for none from us. And you notice these trades slowly going more and more in our favour. And over here, a global Sunstrike catches out the Crystal Maiden as she runs back to base, making it 4 for 0. And at this point, Zoe decides to go ham for some reason. Bless her. But Meepo's in as well. And at this point they're really struggling to deal with that huge damage output from those 5 Meepos. And as long as we can kind of keep them surrounded, keep them in, I'm low, but I jump in to kind of anchor smash. We get another 2 kills, maybe closing in on a 5th.
There it is.
And there it is. We've got a creep wave with a catapult working away on their tower as it is. So this puts in a prime position to actually do what they have not been able to do so far in the game and break base. Which is when you take a first lane of barracks. When barracks go down, the enemy, the side that destroys the barracks, gets more powerful creeps. So whereas previously, now that these barracks are down, whereas previously the creeps would meet in the middle of the map, our creeps will now inexorably move towards their base until they take our barracks. So from being in a pretty severe disadvantage, that one team fight, which started with just picking off the Skywrath Mage on his own, and ended with their carries overcommitting to trying to get an opportunity to kill out of it. The whirlwind coming out from Cox to disable, as he basically tries to flee. He's in a bit of trouble here because he's been silenced. There comes the Skywrath ult. He's dead. Dan gets away. Robin gets to another lane to push that out. Losing the Invoker for 90 seconds at that point is a big deal. Like that's a big loss. But they are now having to concern themselves with this middle lane. They have to make sure it's pushed out, or that those creeps are just going to keep coming. So Dota's in a large part a game of momentum and psychological control, and that's a big blow to them. Like, this is the point where you can imagine them on chat going, we won this at like 0 minutes. Where is that advantage gone? Meanwhile, I sit in the jungle and hit creeps with a boat. And here comes the second Roshan.
Oh yeah.
Knowing that they're kind of, because we have vision from our creeps, so we know exactly where they are at this point. We know that they're in that middle lane.
Can Meepo just take the Roshan again the second time on his own?
But you notice that I came in to just stand near the pit,
right?
Not to show myself, but to be ready to blink in again with Ravage. Should we need, if they rush in to try and kill it, they don't get it fast enough in this case. But it's worth me taking no experience and gold for a bit just to make sure that we had that security option.
Oh yeah.
I think at this point we were saying, Jesus Christ, Robin, pick up the Aegis. Because it can be snatched. If someone else walks into the pit and takes it, they can do that. But yeah, Meepo's farm is getting kind of out of hand at this point. He's not only got Heart of Tarrasque, he's picked up an Ethereal Blade, which allows him to make himself immune to physical attacks, and an enemy immune to physical attacks, but both of them more vulnerable to magic attacks for the time when the effect is active.
Okay.
Which means that he can kind of burst someone very, very quickly. It's not a common pick on Meepo, but he likes it. The Treant at this point is just invisible in their jungle, trying to pick up.
What's he trying to do?
I think he's scouting. I think he's looking for us, because you can see we've got the Forge Spirits coming down here, looking for him, or looking for a target opportunity. We're going to miss him there because he's invisible, but he at least knows that this is where we're interested in focusing. We've decided that we're going to focus this because this is their last remaining town on the exterior of their base.
Controlled by you, then?
They're controlled by the Invoker. Summons of his, one of his spells.
I said they are an indicator of your intention rather than the AI's.
Yeah. So they've spotted the Forge Spirits, but they actually reveal themselves kind of looking for this, which gives us time to bring the Meepo in. And looking for that Ravage, I now have my Refresher Orb, so I can potentially ult twice, but I do actually fuck this up. But they've backed off entirely. One of the good things about that is that I think the Luna, yeah, she popped her Black King bar to escape from that, which means 35 seconds on that cooldown, she's not going to have it for the fight that's about to happen. We know that. So I'm just going to walk in a straight line towards them, walk in, and boom, there's the Ravage, followed up by the Meepo damage. Perfect Serpent Ward Trap on the Razor. Again, amazing play by Dan. And I go down before I can refresh and ult again, but it's ultimately just me for 2 at this point, 3 at this point, 4, as the Meepo takes down the tree and protect it, and we're immediately on the tower. And you can see these wards where they're positioned here doing a really good job of preventing the Luna from getting any closer. And even when she thinks about getting closer, the Meepo's there to blink on top of her. Boom, dead.
Man, those numbers are getting very close.
They are 58, 57. Now, if you look at the network graph, Meepo is just storming the way at the top of it. Massive difference now, 26,000 to 14,000 on the highest carry. Their best carry now has less gold than our position 5 support. XP graph is now 8,000 in our favour. The gold graph, however, is almost 17,500 in our favour. And at this point, all we want to do is end the game. Like, I'm still dead. But I think that's you bitch. But anyway, GG is called. We're on their ancient, and it's unlikely at this point, with their respawn time as being what they are, if they don't have buyback, which they don't, they can do anything about it. In response to that smack talk, Robin just has to dive into their fountain to kill the Crystal Maiden as she spawns. The ancient goes down, and the game is turned around.
That's amazing.
That's Dota.
I imagine you don't see games turn around quite like that very often.
I've never won a game from that bad a start before. But like, if you take a look at the scores at the end of the game, like I ended up on 2 kills, 14 deaths, 27 assists. So that ratio is pretty weird. Like, ideally, I don't want to die anywhere near that much. I died a lot. So
by the end of the game, the kind of amount of XP that individual people has got and the number of kill-death ratio, that's all out of whack from what it normally is in the game?
You can sort of see that. So, for example, like, so max level is 25. Robin hit level 25. Zoe got to 21. Cox got 24. Dan got to 18. I got to 16. They got to 23, 20, 21.
You wouldn't
19,
usually
16.
find that range of XPs.
You do. It's what's more interesting about it is that the rearranging of positions. So you talk about position 1 to 5 as being farm priority, but to an extent, it factors into XP as well. Like, you would expect me to be much higher level because I'm position 3. I'm by myself at the beginning. Like, I had an okay game in terms of landing those ults when they counted, but I didn't have a good game generally. Like, and part of that is starting off at a huge XP disadvantage against the tri lane against 3 people. But and in fact, you know, one of the reasons for that kind of inflated death count, which is only really matched by the Sand King, and it's for the same reason, which is both Tidehunter and Sand King are heroes that dive into the enemy to get their ult off. And when you do that, you are naturally exposed.
Yeah.
And it's often you jump in, you saw this in that game, you jump in, you ult, you die. And so those assists, so I've got very few kills because I was in first. Got a shitload of assists because I would hit every member of the enemy team, but I would die, and so all those kills would go to other people. But, like, really from my point of view, I appreciate this is one of the first games I've ever cast, so I didn't really focus on what the enemy team were doing too much. Also, it's kind of weird when you know what your team is thinking and doing. But Robin obviously played a huge part in that victory because they couldn't ultimately deal with the Meepo. They left him alone for too long in a way. They allowed him to get that comfortable level of farm. Replay's now over, but we can keep talking. That was a mistake they made, but also I think that in terms of victories that come from stuff that's just other than the enemy team doing something wrong, like those team fight plays, that like almost every time an ult was used, it was all used to pretty great purpose. Like just the amount of Shadow Shaman trap, like those wards, they spawn in like a clump of 12. And if you happen to spawn them just right so that the enemy's caught in the middle of them, the enemy can't leave without fighting the way through them. And that's quite hard to do. It's not easy to do. And, you know, you could see it in that game. Dan was consistently landing those Shadow Shaman ward traps on the heroes that they needed to land on the Razor and on the Luna. Both mobile heroes that will run away otherwise, but we can just keep them locked down in position. And consistently at the beginning of every fight, you had the meteor coming down from the Invoker and the deafening blast, which stops them from from using their right-click attacks for a moment. The Sand King Epicenter coming in with good burrow strikes that hit maybe 3 or 4 people in some cases, which is good. On top of the Ravage, which I hope most of the time hit 4 or 5 members of their team.
Yeah.
And that produces this platform where a Meepo can come in and just poof all over buddies' faces. And that's what happened in that game of Wizards 2. Any questions?
Too many, probably, for this video.
Okay. Should we cast some more Dota in the future, perhaps?
Well, let us know in the comments.
Cool.
Bye.